Alright guys, it's time to use some sanders, which means we need to get through the sanding quiz. I have 20 questions about sanders in general, which will cover multiple machines. It'll cover spindle sanders, like this little guy here. I have a couple of these in many of my shops. I have edge sanders, like the one back here that this guy is sitting on. And then we have disc sanders, like the guy back here, which has this big disc on it. So we need to cover some basic safety about all of these sanders, so you don't hurt yourself. Let's get right into it. Hopefully you got your worksheet or quiz out, or you're just following along. That's fine too. So question number 1, it says, before changing sandpaper or any accessories on a sander, always disconnect the power source or unplug the tool. Depending on how it's connected, you got to make your own judgment there. So number 2, you should always wear a dust mask or respirator to prevent breathing fine sawdust generated from sanding. The use of dust collection systems are recommended, but not 100% effective. Sanding in a well-ventilated area such as outside is always ideal. So I have a full dust collection system here hooked up to all these machines. I have a small vacuum hose hooked up to this small portable machine that goes into my dust collection system, and everything has on it a gate. So this is a dust gate over here, and you open, I can show you guys this, you open and close this when you want to collect the dust. Now I'm not going to use it for my videos today because the noise is really, really loud. But and I'm going to do very, very little sanding, but normally I would have that all done, opened up, dust collection turned on, and I would put on a dust mask. So before the world seemed to shut down with COVID, masks had a very different meaning in my shop, and they were used when we did sanding or things like that. So a good N95 mask is really highly recommended anytime you're doing anything with dust like this. Drywall guys wear them all the time because they'd be choking otherwise. Hand sanding, a good idea as well. If you can do it outside in the breeze, have maybe a fan blowing away from you out into a field of grass or something, then maybe not necessarily as big of a deal, but always a good precaution. California does recognize sawdust as a carcinogenic. So anyway, then again, everything else is, so maybe it doesn't mean anything. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. Let's see. Question number 3. Dust accumulated from wood and sanding finishes is combustible and should be handled with caution around electric motor sparks. This thing is electric, right? It turns on and off. Nothing's near the blade, on the disc. So the fact that it turns on and off, it's got an electric motor in there. And an electric motor needs a spark usually to start getting everything going. If you got a lot of dust in the air, and that little spark can catch that dust, which could be really flammable and combustible, on fire, then you've got a combustion hazard. That's really bad. So you want to keep your shop clean as you go, clean your machines, get them cleaned out regularly, dust and blow them out when you're done using them, outside preferably, and get that stuff taken care of, because it can be a real combustible. Number 4, do not use dust collection bags when sanding metal. That seems obvious to me, but let's keep reading. Using a dust collection bag when sanding metal creates a fire hazard, which could damage the tool and lead to serious personal injury. Obviously, if you're sanding metal and you have hot metal shavings and sparks coming off of something and it goes into a dust bag, it's probably going to burn its way through the bag. If you've got wood dust in there because you use it for both things, it's going to set the wood on fire. So that's all around just like stupid. But don't do that. I don't know. Let's see. Number 4. Do not use dust collection. I already read that one. Number 5. Just testing. I was seeing if you were paying attention. Number 5 says, before connecting a sander to the power supply, be sure the switch and switch lock, if applicable, are in the off position. You want to make sure before you plug this thing in, it's off. Okay, let's see. Number 6, keep power cords from entanglement with the moving parts, as damaged cords can result in electric shock. Yeah, no one wants to be electrocuted. I mean, maybe if you're someone from the Addams family or something. Let's not do that in my shop. That seems uncomfortable. Shocked. Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to a non-shocking question. Do not wear loose clothing or jewelry when working around sanders. It could get caught in or around rotating parts. Loose. Sleeves rolled up, no loose clothing. Number 8. Always protect your eyes with an ANSI Z87 safety glasses while using a sander. Always wear your safety glasses. Thank you, Norm. Alright, number 9. Disc sanders should only be used with proper sized discs per the manufacturer's recommendations and securely attached with adhesive hook and loop. That's not referring to big disc sanders like this bad boy over here that came off a submarine. That's referring to small palm sanders like this guy, which have hook and loop belts like this. You wouldn't want to put a really big disc on here or a small one. That would damage the machine. So next we've got when using a stationary sander, material should always be supported against the table. So different sanders have different directions of travel. This is going to rotate around. This sander back here is going to rotate around. This sander back here is going to rotate in a different direction, and you want to use the side that's going towards the table whenever possible. You want that material supported and easy to hold on to. Number 11. Avoid working with small pieces of material which can't be properly secured. Injury could result from small pieces being thrown from the sandpaper. I see a lot of times people will try and take a little teeny tiny piece and sand it, and all of a sudden it'll get caught and it'll pull their finger in, and then all of a sudden they're sanding their fingernail off, or they zipped a little 1/16 of the tip of their finger off or something. It could be worse. I've never seen it personally. We're very, very careful to go over these safety features for a reason. You do not want to be holding something that close to the blade. Put it in a clamp, use the clamp, and hold on to the clamp and have it do that type of work. If you sand the clamp a little bit, it's easily replaceable. These things are kind of irreplaceable, so protect them. Let's see, next question says, on a stationary sander, a 1/16 of an inch maximum clearance or gap should be maintained between the table and the sanding disc or belt. Let me show you what we're talking about. On the machine like this one back here, that's the gap between the table and the discs. You wouldn't want a big gap here because small pieces of wood will get sucked in and stuck there, and that could cause a problem. So same thing here on this table. There's a big gap here. You really want to make this as small as possible. It's not as important here, but still could be a safety issue. On the sander behind me, same type of thing. You want to keep the gap between the sandpaper and the table as little as possible, about a 1/16 to an 1/8 of an inch. And that's really, the max. But for this one, it says 1/16 of an inch. That's what we're going with. 13. Before tracking a belt sander, be sure the sander is supported properly to avoid accidental contact with yourself or nearby objects. Belt sanders can just it's a belt, so when you turn that thing on, it's a big rotating thing. It just kind of takes off. You want to make sure that it's not sitting down on something when you plug it in. Home Time, the old show used to do that with Tim Taylor. That thing would just take off. It would be a joke. They would do stuff like this all the time. If you turn it on its side, it could be working its way into a table, especially if the belt's moving sideways. You want to have that thing held upside down, have a good firm grip on it, because when you turn it on, it's going to kick. The motor's going to have that torsion, torque type kick to it, and then you can have your hand somewhere where you can adjust the tensioning tracking knob easily. So we're primarily talking about hand belt sanders when we're talking about that. If you've never seen one, we're talking about a tool that looks like this, okay? And this belt stays on here right in the middle when this front wheel is tracked properly. If it moves this way, then that belt is going to move out. If it's this way, the belt's going to move in. When it's just right, it stays in the middle. And the way that we adjust that on here is we turn this knob back and forth, okay? Got to have my dust masks next to the sander. All right, next question. 14, when using a portable sander, never force downward pressure on it. That could be that belt sander, that could be that little circular palm sander like this guy back here that we were looking at. too much downward pressure is bad. It says the weight of your tool applies adequate pressure. It's designed to give the right amount of pressure for that tool. Looking at this thing, it says forcing too much pressure can cause stalling, overheating of the tool, burning of the workpiece, and damage to the sanding pad. They're all bad. Don't do that. I see a lot of people will they want to sand it faster, so they'll push down on it, and you'll hear that tool goes from a nice hum, it's like it bogs down. It's screaming at you. You suck. Why are you hurting me? That's what the tool is saying to you. And just don't do that to the tool. It'll last longer. It won't get damaged. It'll actually work better. It won't put swirl marks and all kinds of crap in your finish. The finish will come out really nice and clean if you work it properly with light pressure, moving slowly across the workpiece, come back, overlapping like you're mowing the lawn with some kind of a, artistic eye, and that's how it works. That's what you want to do. Next question says, when sanding with a stationary spindle sander, that's this guy, or a belt sander, always sand against the direction of the abrasive. So if this thing is rotating in this direction, where as soon as the wood would hit it, it would want to kick it this way, then I actually want to, when I touch it, want to go the other way. That way I can control it. If I'm going in the same direction it wants to throw it, then I really don't have control over it. So you always want to go in the opposite direction it would want to throw it, okay? That's an easy way to keep track. Next question says, when using a portable sander, always make sure it has come to a complete stop before setting it down. You wouldn't want to put the belt sander down and have it go walking off, or set that palm sander down and have it go walking off. Make sure that they're on their side and they've come to a stop before you let go of them. Let's see. Small material must be secured with a clamp or holding device to maintain clearance from fingers. We kind of already touched on that. So let's see, 19. Do not sand work that has excess glue or finish on the surface without scraping it off first. We do not want to sand a bunch of glue. It will gum up all the paper. That will wear out our paper. So you can scrape that off with an actual scraper much, much faster. It says these materials clog and ruin sandpaper. This we were saying. Number 20. Always keep fingers clear of discs, belts, and things like that while sanding, or use a push stick or a push block when necessary. These are not supposed to be pushed into sandpaper. You all know that. There's a lot of different ways to do this. So, having some kind of a push block to hold your material, if you got to have one hand close to the blade, just in case you slip, your hand's not going in there. You can use this thing. I'd rather you sacrifice this and throw it away than, hurt your fingers. So, work safe. Hopefully you got the answer to all 20 questions. You understand all the questions here. If you're not filling this thing out just for general knowledge, I will demonstrate these in my next video so you can actually see me using the spindle sander. Then we'll do some glue up. Then we'll come back and use it again in a little bit more detail. There it is. We'll see you on the next one. It's sanding time. All right, so what I'm going to do, normally I would have the dust collector open, turned on and off. I'm going to leave it off for the audio quality because it gets really loud. But all I want to do is sand this down to my liner here. I have a small spindle that has the right outside diameter in order to do that. And then I can clean up the inside of this just a little bit. Not much. I want to do more of that after I glue the two of them together. Okay? But part of this area I won't be able to get to later. So let's see. Still have a little bit of a high spot in the middle, so I'm trying to get that out right now and just make it look even and good. Yeah, that'll work. Maybe just a little bit more. Looks like from here, actually. Much easier to fix it now than it is to go back and get it later. That's nice and even. Okay. So then on this one, there's not much that I'm going to do to it other than this little area here that I can get to. Unfortunately, the spindle sander won't reach in here, so that'll have to be done with a little bit of hand sanding. And since I'm going to glue this piece on here, and then I won't be able to get in here as easily afterwards, I'm going to try and get that done beforehand. So what I'm going to try and do is take a little paper. This is a pretty aggressive paper, so if you're doing this in the shop, you're probably going to try and grab like a, I don't know, an 80 or something like that, and then I'm going to want a backer or something on this, so something that'll hold it flat. A putty knife or something might work really well. Something even like a small ruler. So let me take a ruler, put it over the top of this, and then just use that to smooth out. Here, let me fold this. Hold just to get that transition smoothed out, because I won't be able to sand that very good later, and I want the sound to not be hitting that. You got to be really gentle here, because this could easily crack off. And that is as good as I'm going to get that for now. I'll have to make sure that it works really well with my phone. So my phone has its speaker port right here, and that will perfectly line up with this hole here, and the music will come out and go that way. I want to make sure that the phone can face forward though. So what that means is I will need to take the pencil marks and go that way. The speaker's here towards the front of this thing. So when you're looking at it from the front, it'll be more like that. And I'll glue the back side on here as well. Alright, I'll catch you for glue up at the next video.